All right. We are recording. We are here with the one
Ready?
and only Ron Turner, the founder of Last Gasp, San Francisco treasure, I guess you'd call it. Can we call you a treasure? Um, Works, everybody from R. Crumb to, just an amazing man. And we're happy to have you, Ron. Thank you for being here.
I've kept recology trucks full for years.
Thank you. Oh, so we had a little bit of a snafu technologically today, but we finally have arrived. And I think where I wanted to start today with you, Ron, which I thought made sense, would be let me get this background, and I think that you'll understand what I'm going to ask you about. But how do you feel about them pulling Pepe Le Pew away because he's
Um,
he's adding to the rape culture? This is like yesterday, day before. You've heard this news, I'm sure.
you know,
What
um,
do you think? What do you think?
people are always picking on cats. In this case, this poor cat, Pepe Le Pew thinks because he's a skunk. He's an animal, and I don't know what makes animals different than us. We're animals too, except that we can blab about it. And in this case, Pepe Le Pew is he simply does what all animals do when they get the proper stimulus. They fornicate because it's the only way they continue to be on the planet.
Yes,
If they
exactly.
don't, if they don't do that, they're gone. That's it. So there's a big drive. Apparently, it's in everything. It's everything that has seeds or nuts or ovaries or gonads at all.
Now, what about Felix? Now, I know that there was Fritz the cat, and he definitely liked to
Have we ever
procreate.
really established what sex Felix is?
Well, his name's Felix. Isn't that kind of a
No.
guy's? That's a guy's name,
Yeah,
isn't it?
that's
Felicia would be Felicia the cat. Would.
like Pasquale the duck, Donald Duck. Yeah.
So, all right. Well, you guess cats get a bad rap, but it is pretty interesting, and that whole Dr. Seuss thing that's going on
He's
too. You know.
he's saying exactly, and that's what the joke is that a skunk will probably screw your boot if it's black and white, you know. Yeah. So the cartoonists are not dummies. They know a lot of stuff in different fields, and they use that to provoke you with their humor.
Yeah.
And they set up situations that are called embarrassments by any normal person, and because you see yourself in their pictures, you get embarrassed, and the way to get rid of embarrassment is to laugh.
Yeah.
Natural built-in thing to our systems.
But
So
all these years, you've been around. When were you walking around in the hate? Like, do you remember your
uh,
first?
I remember the dinosaurs and the hate. Come on.
Come on, tell me about your first impressions. What year was it?
First impression of the hate was in 1956.
Wow.
I came up with our chapter dad from our Demo Lay chapter and then one other guy. And in Fresno, Chet was referred to as Fresno's most eligible bachelor, which was a very polite way of saying he was gay. And in the 50s, I was just completely closeted. We came up, he dropped us off at a hotel. We saw the East-West football game. And then I was up here. I waited a week for my dad to get up here from, we had theaters in the San Joaquin Valley, drive-in theaters and regular theaters
Mm-hmm.
in tiny little towns. And we came up to do booking trips on Haight Street that had all these film company outlets where you could go, and then they give you passes and you meet movie stars and, you know, chunk of ching. So I had a week on my own up here waiting for my dad to come up. And I went back by Kezar Stadium where this thing was played. So I was walking around from downtown. I didn't know anything about the bus system, but I walked and walked and walked, and I noticed that this bar near Kezar, it was called Kezar or something.
It's still there, I believe, if it's
Yeah,
the
yeah,
same
it's a
Kezar. Yeah.
sports bar now or something.
On Stanion, yeah.
But it was a gay bar. I thought, well, that's funny. They were a football bar when we were here for the football game.
All those tight pants, Ron.
Oh, it's great. So, but I walked around the Haight Street, and it's just kind of like a boring neighborhood of small shops, and a lot of old people lived because they like to look out onto the park from their apartments
Right.
and things there. So it's kind of boring place. And then I came up a couple of times. I met on a peace march. I met Allen Ginsberg, and I were walking side by side, so we got to know each other. Only he could only say oh mum mum bum bum mumble with his symbols, but everything with symbols are a retard, but it was okay. And then, I liked the San Francisco thing. I'd come up here as a kid even.
Mm-hmm.
We stayed at the Marines Memorial Club because my dad had been a Marine in World War II.
Mm-hmm.
And at some point, I was in grad school in Fresno, at Fresno State.
And weren't you studying psychology? Is that what I
did
saw?
study psychology, yes.
Is this why you know the psychology of cats so well? Is that because of all that grad studying, grad
I
school?
found the first paper I ever wrote in high school for an English class. It was called, I didn't know what on earth to write about, so the paper was entitled The Care and Feeding of Cats.
How did I know that? Kismet.
I had 12 cats at one time when I was a kid. It wasn't an animal I didn't fall in love with and bring home with me.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I'm allergic to cats, so.
Well, the psychology of animals. Although aren't a lot of serial killers, isn't it the thing that is the giveaway is that they're into bones of animals and things? Sorry, that just took a turn, but you know.
Well, you mentioned it.
You're the psychologist, man.
I remember I was called by the grand jury over in Marin County for Jim Mitchell's trial for shooting his brother.
Oof.
And at least I had talked to enough lawyers in my life that I knew enough to realize these guys are asking three things in one question. So you have to be very careful about.
Yeah.
And you just asked three questions in one sentence. So if I answer this, I'm thinking, do I admit to being a serial killer?
Sorry, it was the half an hour on the phone trying to get the damn Zoom to work. But you know, so tell me about this behind me here, the Weirdo, the Book of Weirdo.
The Book of Weirdo. Okay, well that's a brilliant. All that is not photography. That's Drew Friedman's artwork, and he does amazing work. I'd only used him for a few books. He was in some of the Weirdo magazines. Weirdo was started by Robert Crumb, who came and wanted to do a kind of an oddball mixture of photo funnies and cartoons and everybody doing things. So we did. We were already doing the Zap comics.
Yeah.
And we went ahead with that one for 28 issues.
Yeah, I was listening to him some interview this morning when I was doing my homework, and he was saying, how'd you feel about all the hippies? He's like, I couldn't do it. It was too weird. I was too shy. I couldn't be that hippie. Right. That's what he said. Until the LSD kicked in, I think.
The first Zap, he and his wife, I think, lived up there on Cole Street.
Oh, yeah.
Just off of Haight. Not in Charlie Manson's apartment. That would have been too weird. Charlie was at 626 Shore, I believe.
Wow.
And
for all the people that didn't know that are living there right now, maybe they know it. I don't know.
Yeah. Look under the mattress. I'm sure they haven't changed anything yet. So Robert was there with his wife Dana, and they had the baby carriage. And Robert was taking a lot of LSD back then.
Mm-hmm.
They'd moved from Cleveland, where he'd been working with the American Greeting Card Company.
Wow. And
he was just, he looked and dressed like a guy from the 30s, a musician from the 30s. Mm-hmm. And So they had met up with Don Donahue, a guy who had gone to St. Ignatius and then to Cal, and he was kind of a early hippie and a late blooming beatnik, and he met up with a guy, or with this couple, Pam Plymell and Charles Plymell, who were beatnik poets here in the city, and they had a printing press that Allen Ginsberg told me that he'd gotten on a grant.
Wow.
It was printing kind of poetry broadsides on. And Donahue and Plymell had become friends, and Don eventually bought the press from him, but they were talking about this cartoonist that they'd seen in this underground newspaper called Yarrow Stocks in Philadelphia. They said, boy, we'd really like to do a whole thing of Crumb stuff. In the meantime, S. Clay Wilson, who just passed away a few weeks ago, had come out from Kansas and from Lawrence, Kansas, where he was hanging out, although he was from Nebraska also. And somehow the Lawrence, Kansas crew, which included many writers and artists, had a connection to the Haight, connection to North Beach, and they all got together and did some broadsides on this press. And then Donahue met Crum at a party and invited him over to where the press was, which is at 2180 Bryant then, I think.
Wow.
And they did the first Zap comics on it. And then and so you can tell if you have the first of the first, because on the back it says printed by Charles Plymell. And then Donahue bought the press from him, and the second 1,000 copies printed by Don Donahue is on the back of it.
Wow. Now, where is that press today?
And then so Crum and Dana were down on Haight Street in 68 there, and their baby carriage, old-fashioned baby carriage, and sold Zap comics out of the carriage on Haight Street.
That's fantastic.
So,
no, it's 68. So that's what they say. That's the year that everything went to hell, and the bad drugs came in. And
69 it went to hell.
The what?
69 it went to hell.
69. So 68 was.
I got into San Francisco State, and I moved in to a place over in the Richmond district on 6th Street, 6th Avenue.
6th Avenue, yeah.
And I would go and I would walk every night for my exercise. I'd walk over to the Haight and get a coffee at the drugstore, and then walk all the way back. And there was always a lot of mugging, but I kind of grew up in a culture of street fighting. So I was always kind of waiting for guys to jump out of the bushes.
And you said you were a wrestler. I think you mentioned something about it being a wrestler.
I was in high school and college, and I even went out for pro wrestling one time. Some stupid Channel 47 in Fresno, they had this makeshift wrestling ring in the back of the TV studio outside the parking lot. And they had these guys, and my God, they were thugs. They were still wearing their government issue swimming suits from the military.
Wow.
That was their thing, They just were mean, evil guys. They just wanted to, we'll take on anybody from the audience, and that was all, amateur time. And then I saw that what they did is they just basically did everything they could to hurt the opponent.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Mean fighting. Yeah.
In a fair fight, evenly matched. In the way these guys fought, no. And so.
Speaking of fighting, I know that you did it. You were very involved in a lot of protests, and that's an interesting segue. But it's true, fighting and it's war. You were heavily involved in a lot of protesting, weren't you? I mean, you were really, yeah.
Yeah, where you want to start?
Well, just kind of, I guess it's interesting for me. I mean, I'm well, I'm just late. Well, whatever. You know, I didn't have a war to protest per se, and I just think it's really interesting the crossover between the awesomeness of cartoons and comics like this, and
Myself and a bunch of others put together a little underground newspaper in Fresno, and it was old school. Basically, it was mimeographed
yeah,
and put together with staplers. You know.
yeah. That was the beginnings, right?
That was kind of the beginning back then. But so I did a story. A friend of mine, Carol Gastanian, had this wonderful coffee house, beatnik kind of coffee house there called the Orange Ogre.
Hmm.
And she had a lot of her Armenian friends playing Armenian folk music there.
Wow.
It was a great place. And later on, she had like a little jazz club and a diner called the Ding Dong Diner, like an old trolley.
They don't make them like they used to.
A head shop called Penny Candy. And she was just a plethora of knowledge about everything cool and hip, did things cool and hip. And unfortunately, she was in Fresno, so she didn't get a big wide, bandwidth there. So. Oh yeah, here's It Ain't Me, Baby.
Yeah, when you were, that's kind of a good segue for that. I mean, that was amazing that you were putting out, you know, things like this. I mean, that's have her name, and also the slow death, the slow death funnies. I think that's amazing that you were thinking about the ecology way back then. I mean, if there's ever a need for those kind of comics these days, I mean, shoo.
It Ain't Me, Babe was our second comic, and that came from Trina Robbins. And I heard somebody wanted to do a comic on women's stuff, and I wanted to already do one. I was looking at that, and we got together, and I just went over and handed her $1,000, and she handed me the artwork, and we were off.
It's wonderful.
That was great. I mean, that was, it's really starting to be a big thing back then. And I mean, well, hell, for women, it's been a big thing for thousands of years, but it was starting to, capture a few men's mentalities as well. So
yeah,
the time to promote it. And this was trying to go into like a lot of people thought it was mostly undergrounds were tits and ass comics or something because they had sex in them, woo sex. So, but people were evolving in all levels of the society and the stratus at the time. You said slow death. Well,
yeah.
On a boat, arriving very soon will be Slow Death Zero, which is 144 pages or so, 124. Here's Drew Friedman we talked about a little bit earlier.
Yeah.
Photo. This is line drawing of me.
God, that's wonderful. I mean, it looks like that's amazing.
I've tried to live a nice life and be nice to people and all that, but what did it get me? It got me into becoming a cartoon character.
Worst things to be.
I'm not sure.
Well, serial killer.
Well,
pull it up a little closer. Wow.
Yeah, but they did it to me all the way through here.
That's great.
All these stories.
So it's kind of like Alfred Hitchcock?
It's about, certainly not about me. We've got like really great artwork down in here by all kinds of people, but we're going out into all the areas that I like to get into, which is things like there's
the Garden of Chauta?
Yeah, this is in Syria. So this is a spot-on story of civilians getting wiped out in Syria right now.
Wow, yeah, that's... Whew.
It's got everything. It's got all kinds of things. I want to point out one thing on the cover here. Bill Stout, who did this cover, he did originally the Greenpeace issue cover that we did. we had like several cases of these comics, like 500, 600 copies, to like 40 or 50 Greenpeace offices around the world.
Wow.
They did the Greenpeace issue, and but here you'll notice
It's hard to see.
it's Bill Stout, who's a magnificent painter of murals on natural history museums, dedicated this to me and to Leo. And Leo would be Leonardo DiCaprio.
Oh.
Because George DiCaprio and I are best friends, and it's his son. But Leo's like completely into the ecological movement.
Oh yeah. Wow.
Here's another.
That's fantastic.
You see, I'm dead.
Halfway. Halfway.
Look at the window on there.
Wow.
So anyway, that's coming out. That's on a boat right now. So we have to clear everything. We have to clear everything in China now to make sure it doesn't say anything about the Tibetans or the Uyghurs or.
My Lord. Wow.
We print there. So now we're putting more in Korea and other Canada.
Wow. I was reading Who Was Calling You? I was just doing my homework again. Robert Williams, who did I guess it's the Coochie Cootie. Is that correct?
Yeah, he's one of the Zap cartoonists.
Yeah, he was quoted as saying, "You are the civic father of San Francisco," which I thought was great.
Sure. Robert's amazing. He was Big Daddy Ed Roth's kind of art director. And he worked at Weyerhaeuser designing boxes and cartons and how they work. And he began doing comics along with the Big Daddy Ed Roth stuff.
Wow. How do you think the Haight-Ashbury? Do you think it's sort of in the fabric of your vision for Last Gasp? I mean, do you think that whole the cult?
I was always in and out of the Haight.
Yeah.
Wherever I lived in San Francisco, but we had a commune that I joined down on Beulah Street called the Beulah Street Commune. And so that was a remarkable group of people. And a lot of us are still in touch.
Wow. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
So were you at the Human Being and all of that? You were at all of those.
No, I was working. I was a working hippie.
Aww.
I worked for. Took me a long time to get through college and grad school, and so I worked as a brakeman on the Santa Fe and Southern Pacific and Southern Railroad for 5 years. In fact, when I moved to San Francisco to go to grad school, I was still working in Fresno, and I had to commute 220 miles down to Fresno.
Wow.
I arranged my classes so I could lay off during the middle of the week when the regular guys are working.
Wow.
You get down there on a Thursday afternoon and just go call from Madera, find a phone booth, call, put me on the extra board, and then drive straight to the yard.
Wow.
Say,
So a working hippie, I think there's a lot of kids on Haight Street nowadays. A lot of these street kids come in here and, think it's just about a big party or a big, I like the notion of that work is okay, right? I mean, it's not anti-work, that's for sure, right? How do you feel about that?
The kids on Haight Street?
Nowadays, yeah, because I do kind of want to talk about what's going on now. I mean, compared to what you lived through and what these beautiful things that you manifested in all these amazing magazines and books and, I mean, R. Crumb and bringing these things to life. And I feel like, obviously, there's a pandemic too, but where it's at now, there's still a magic lingering. But I'm just curious to know what you think about where we're at on the Haight with all the shops are closed. I mean, a lot of them are closed. Anyway, go ahead.
They'll reopen. It's my favorite movie is Peter Sellers called Being There.
Yeah.
And he keeps
Chauncey.
People by Chauncey, yes, Chauncey Gardner. Doesn't even know He just knows his name is Chauncey. And they said, well, what do you do? I'm a gardener. Oh, Chauncey Gardner. Oh, okay. But his whole thing was like, he's talking to this guy whose wife ran into him. And then that guy's best friends with the president. And they come over somehow, they meet. And he just says, like, so what do you think about this, Chauncey? Well, you know, there's a spring, and then comes summer. And it's followed by fall, and then there's winter. Then there's spring again.
Yeah.
And they think, wow, how deep, how heavy, wow, man. You know? And that's, you know, like Haight Street, it'll bloom again. Just
Yeah.
add some water to the piss on the sides of the buildings.
Now, I'm sure you've heard about the corner building becoming a national, it's been deemed a national treasure by the SF Heritage.
I know that guy, yeah.
Yeah.
Fabulous. What a gift.
Yeah.
But, I just hope that somebody like Michael Xavier gets in charge of it or something. I don't know.
He told me that how does he cut his hair? He cut your hair, and he told me, oh, 2 on the side, on 1 on top. He had it all. I wrote it down, but now I've lost it. But
well,
2 on the side, 2 clippers on the side, 1 on the bottom, and flat on top. That's Michael Xavier saying hi.
he learns well.
And I'm sure you.
He also used to do my son-in-law's hair.
Okay.
Same barbershop. You know,
He's yeah.
I'm gonna go with my daughter. Cut up both our daughter, my daughter-in-law, and my son-in-law's wife. My daughter.
No.
We cut our hair since then.
Yeah, he's still there. He's still cutting hair. Have you been to the Haight Street Art Center, and have you been involved with that whole
The Haight Street
Art Center down? It's on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I went to a.
Stanley had an exhibit there last year.
Yes.
Yeah.
And just before the pandemic took hold, there was a big thing down there.
They did I think maybe the Hunter S. Thompson, the oh God. Who's help me.
Artist.
Yes. Hunter S. Thompson's artist is, oh my God, this is bad. I gotta look it up. Oh God. That's terrible. Linda, terrible.
Starts with an S?
I was about to say Studs Terkel, but that's completely.
Ralph Steadman.
Oh yeah, Ralph Steadman. Ralph Steadman. God bless him. Yeah, it was a great exhibit. Boy, that was embarrassing. Sorry, everybody, that I forgot his name. But anyway.
Oh, so many names in this business.
There's just so many names in the world. So I'm bringing it back, and then I'll let you go. But thanks for being.
We did this great book, which has Steadman. It's called "Who Killed Hunter Thompson," and I urge everybody to get that, because if they ever enjoyed Warren Hinkle's writing and his skill, and they also like Hunter's stuff, he was the guy who assigned Hunter to go with Ralph Steadman to cover the Kentucky Derby, which launched Gonzo journalism. And it's that story, but Hinkle's memory of Hunter, his introduction to this book is 200 pages long. Now, where do you have an introduction that's 200 pages?
I don't know.
And then we round the book out with all of the work that Warren Hinkle did, Ramparts magazine.
Wow.
Which is where I first met Stanley Mouse, through those pages, and wanted to go to San Francisco. I got a copy of Ramparts. I was working a railroad train down in the valley at the fruit sheds. And in my break time, I'd be reading Ramparts and what was going on up in Frisco, you know.
Wow. Wow.
So it all ties together. But anyway, there's like 44 people, everybody from Will Hearst III to Governor Brown, everybody. And Governor Newsom's dad, the late federal judge Bill Newsom, was Warren's best friend when they were all going to USF.
Yeah. And well, Donahue, that era when Donahue was being a DJ too, that was kind of all mixed in there. All the music was coming through and all of that too, right? The radio airwaves.
Donahue was not a, the other not Donahue.
No, the other Donahue.
Bass hand Donahue.
That was one of my questions actually, is how obviously it's intermingled with it, but how music greatly influenced, and the music that was coming through affected all of these, artists and things. And yourself.
I interviewed the Grateful Dead when they played Fresno in '66 or '67 spring.
Wow.
And since we had virtually no taxi service, I ended up giving them all rides out to the airport. And we were friends that way. And I remember on the way out, Jerry said, there was a little stall in the conversation because we really didn't know each other.
Mm-hmm.
And besides the occasional burp from Pigpen, and Jerry says, so Ron, he says, how many hippies are there in Fresno? And I said, 43. We went on in silence for a while, and he says, well, okay.
Now, Jerry loved a good comic. I mean, he was really into comics, right?
I know.
Yeah.
Greg Irons, who did the cover that's behind you, was good friends with him, and he was into EC Comics. I was, and so was Jerry. That's basically how the second level of our binding together. Friends, yeah. So, yeah, I was really sad that all these people are dead. I feel like, I don't know why I got admitted to the old man club, but I did.
Well, you're looking great. Yeah, Susanna, yay!
Susanna, yeah.
Yeah, Susanna Milliman.
Her husband was the
Dennis McNally.
Dead.
Yep. That's a beautiful book. It really is a gorgeous book.
She's an amazing photographer.
Yeah.
And she self-published the first printing of that, and then we, collided, and we helped her with the second one. Yeah.
Now, you said you were a working hippie, but did you attend a lot of music concerts yourself? Did you go?
I've been pretty broke all my life. I couldn't afford most of them. One thing we did do is we took a old school bus and turned it into a library. Mm-hmm. And I went on one of the early Lollapalooza tours.
Wow. And that's great. And distributed your books or sold your books out the.
Yeah, we sold our books.
That's great.
And V. Vale, who's a North Beach guy, he had a book out called his research line of you'd be out in the middle of chicken, turkey, poop, Nebraska or someplace, and there'd be all these kids, and they've already spent their money on a T-shirt and admission and their soda pop, and they're hungry, and they can't really afford the books. But one of the greatest things for everything I've done is that, in terms of rewarding, was watching these kids come up and stare at all this strange magical literature in front of them, not knowing that there was anything like this, and then finding something that was particularly them. And you could see that they realized for the first time they were not the only one that was that screwed up or crazy or happily employed. So anyway, Vale had this thing called Modern Primitives, which Charles Gatewood, I think, had created the title. And I always say, especially with the young girls coming in, and say, so for God's sakes, girls, whatever you do not look at page 27.
Of course, that's straight to it, right?
Somehow, Of course, page 27 was some guy who had split his penis in two.
Ooh.
He had a double, it was a Prince Albert on top of that. So.
Oh, God.
They'd almost fall down in shock. I told you not to look at page 27. You see what happened to her? She lives at page 27.
But okay, well, that kind of brings us back full circle to what I was alluding to earlier with this whole,
Pepe
you
Le
know,
Pew.
where did he? Yeah, that whole thing. I want to get him back up here
I hate
because
cancel culture. It's so stupid.
that's my. Well, that's the thing. They're calling it the culture of the rape culture.
Oh, for
It
God's
supports
sake.
the rape culture, and so I googled the word culture, but I'm not going to say anything because there are people that this offends. But I mean, everything's going to offend somebody somehow,
Well,
and
it plays well into the hands of those that have been terribly set upon and injured and hurt and killed. And, it's humans can do very horrible things to each other.
yes.
But stay away from my brain and my thinking, please,
I love that.
or I'll hurt you. Yeah.
I'll hurt you more by making even cooler comics. Lots of them.
Yeah,
That's your weapon. Yeah.
we're not born already, wired for everything.
Yeah. So yeah, what I mean, then in parting words, what would you say to the Haight Street voiced land people, out there, be they kids or the elders or the, whoever is Stanley Mouse that might be listening, who knows? What would you like to say to everybody about where you've come from and where you think we're headed and
I'd say to Stanley, I said, like, keep up your painting, man. It's been some great portraits you've been doing, and just a string of them. I don't know where you find the time, really. He's a unique guy.
I had the honor. He painted me while I interviewed him for my Grateful Dead book,
Nice.
because he doesn't like to talk. Yeah, it's a gorgeous painting. I wish I had it here. It's too big to bring into my kitchen, but winging it here. But here's he and I on Haight Street for the is it going to disappear? For the Haight Street. Where am I? Oh,
You become a green screen,
yeah, I've become a green. Oh, there we are.
floating off in the distance. Huh?
But yeah, that was an honor because yeah, he is doing beautiful portraits.
I really love Stanley. He's just great.
Yeah.
And
He owned the what was the name? The Pacific Coast? No, the Pacific POT. Geez, Pacific Trading Post, something like that, on Haight Street, right across from, right there at Belvedere, I believe. He owned a Pacific Trading Company. Remember that? And that famous picture of him sitting out there in front of he's sitting on a Rolls Royce, black and white photo, selling his art. Those are the days.
those were the days. I met
Yeah.
Charlie Manson on Haight Street.
Oh, that's great. Tell me about that.
He's just a creepy fuck. He's just
Oh,
about the creepiest guy I've ever met, I think.
wow.
Well, I don't know. He was selling lids down on Haight Street at night. Somewhere down, I was coming from the drugstore. I remember I was past him, and he just looked like a mouse, that, or a little rat that somebody had beaten a lot. He just said that, but there was something in his eyes that was just cool. I remember I became friends with Tim Leary at some point, and that was the only thing that Tim would never talk about was when he and Manson were in adjacent cells for a while.
Yeah.
That was the only thing I think that really freaked him out, was being that close to Manson.
Yeah.
But he could recognize pure evil.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, so I liked what you said about hate, that it'll come back. Winter,
It will
spring.
come back.
That means a lot. I think a lot of people that are maybe, have been there, were there, look back and go, oh my God, it was so great then and now it's gone. But to hear you think that it's going to come back is nice to hear.
Well, we've got to take care of the homeless. We've got to take care of jobs. We've got to take care of. There's still a lot of throwaway kids, and it's going to be even magnified after
Oh, yeah.
this pandemic, from the kids who didn't really get the online learning.
Yeah.
too
Oh,
well.
yeah. That's really hard.
And so we got a lot, but it's going to be just like after the Roaring 20s. It's going to be going big time because everybody, the first thing I hear everybody say they're going to do, and very innocently they say this, they're going to give everybody a big hug. Again, especially if they're going on this grandparent thing, like, God, now I can hug my grandkids. I've got both my shots, and that's the first thing they say.
Aw.
And that's a beautiful, innocent hug.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
also, it's just the human need to touch.
Yeah.
Skin is the biggest system in your body.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Stimulation to work.
And live music and dancing. I think movement and dancing. That's
Sure.
we really miss that.
That's been stylized and went in complete opposition to the church teachings because they wanted to control your gonads and
Like they want to do to Pepe.
no, they were like cruelly forced people to avoid each other.
Yeah.
So they could be the only ones that could perform marriage, which allowed you to be naked with each other.
Yeah.
Too bad the Druids didn't win.
Well, I want to thank you for all that you've done and do and are continuing to do, and yeah, even regarding sex, and that yeah, you're gonna see a split penis in a cartoon or a comic, and it's okay.
Things happen,
Yes, laughing is free, and laughing we can do. Oh no, you have to cover your mouth if you're in public while you're laughing, right? Can't do that. So
yeah, or picking your teeth.
Yeah.
and the people from other countries now, it's like, I don't know what's worse, It's like, see how they're gonna,
Yeah, I think that's worse than just doing it. Yeah.
Got that chunk of pork in there. Between the teeth and trying to work it out.
Oh. Well, thanks so much for being here and talking about the Haight and talking about your life and California. And
well, happy to come back anytime, and thank you for having me. And the Haight will live. The Haight will live very well. Thank you.
Thank you, Ron. Much love. We'll be back. We'll bring you back again.
Okay.
Okay. Much love. Peace. Bye. Bye.